Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are grabbing our chalk, heading to the blackboard, and mapping out the absolute ultimate 2026 digital asset strategy for institutional asset managers. Look, if you're managing a portfolio right now, you know firsthand that the rules of the game have totally changed from just a few years ago. We're definitely not operating in that speculative, retail-heavy Wild West that defined the early days of crypto. Instead, we've officially entered an era of deep, structural, institutional maturity. We're talking about a landscape defined by shifting macroeconomic paradigms, highly structured products, and massive changes to global liquidity. To really grasp the sheer scale of the landscape we're in today, and why it absolutely demands your attention, look no farther than June 6th. On that single day, a staggering $471.4 million flowed into U.S. Bitcoin ETFs. That wasn't a fluke, guys. This is the new baseline. For years, right, the major barrier for institutional capital was liquidity. Large funds literally couldn't enter or exit positions without causing massive price slippage. But when you have nearly $500 million of net inflows rushing into spot products in 24 hours, it completely wipes out that friction. It sends a crystal clear signal: institutional capital is aggressively positioning itself, and the plumbing is finally robust enough to handle it. But what exactly are they positioning for?
Okay, let's dive into this by challenging a deeply held crypto belief. Is the traditional 4-year halving cycle officially dead? For over a decade, the entire industry practically timed its watches to the Bitcoin halving. The mechanics were super simple. Wait 4 years, the block reward gets cut in half, the market gets a supply shock, retail investors get severe FOMO, and boom, prices explode. It was a very reliable, retail-driven clock. But for institutional managers looking at the data in 2026, relying on a simple supply-side narrative just doesn't cut it anymore. Frankly, it's increasingly accurate because those supply shocks are now being completely dwarfed by macro capital flows. The data strongly suggests the 4-year cycle has actually been replaced by a new institutional paradigm. We call it the liquidity supercycle. This is a prolonged market expansion driven by the global M2 money supply, which, if you need a refresher, is essentially the total amount of cash, checking deposits, and easily accessible money circulating in the global economy. This massive wall of capital is completely overriding those traditional halving patterns. We're living in a world where global central bank capital injections, government debt monetization, and structured ETF inflows actually dictate the market. Retail hype has firmly taken a backseat to a much larger, much more powerful macroeconomic machine.
So here is the syllabus for our masterclass today. We're going to break down the new macro math, explore why liquidity actually trumps interest rates, outline the massive regulatory shift, analyze capital rotation, and finally, put a highly actionable playbook on the board for you and your firm. Let's jump right into section 1, the new macro equation. If we draw a line right down the middle of our strategies, we can clearly see this stark contrast between the old retail-driven paradigm of the past and the sophisticated M2-driven institutional reality of 2026. On one hand, we had an ecosystem heavily reliant on retail sentiment, operating in these murky regulatory gray areas and reacting violently to isolated crypto-native events. For a fiduciary, that was a compliance nightmare, and it largely kept the smart money on the sidelines. On the other hand, the 2026 paradigm brings immense institutional relief. It's driven by global liquidity, anchored by heavily regulated spot ETFs, and governed by comprehensive, clear frameworks. As a portfolio manager, your whole analytical framework has to migrate to this new reality. All right, let's move to section 2 and look at the underlying math driving this shift, focusing specifically on why liquidity rules over interest rates. Check this out. Even though the Fed officially locked in a quote-unquote higher for longer policy rate of 3.5 to 3.75%, they are quietly injecting $40 billion a month via reserve management purchases. $40 billion. This is a massive revelation for anyone trying to price risk. Think of it like this. The Fed can hold interest rates high to fight inflation headlines and project strength, right? But simultaneously, they're using these reserve management purchases to stealthily inject billions into the banking system just to keep the financial plumbing from freezing up. This means the system is being flooded with liquidity while presenting a really tight, hawkish front to the general public. The absolutely crucial point here is that macro experts like Arthur Hayes view these injections as QE in disguise. He estimates that this hidden liquidity is exactly what will propel Bitcoin past its previous highs. Hayes argues that once the broader market fully digests that this purchasing program is essentially just quantitative easing, we're going to see an aggressive acceleration.
This speaks directly to the daily struggle of a portfolio manager, doesn't it? Trying to find yield and generate alpha in a confusing macro environment where the stated central bank policy actively contradicts their actual balance sheet mechanics. Recognizing this divergence is the key to front-running the next major leg up.
And backing up that institutional confidence, we have Raoul Pal noting that this cycle could extend to 2026 and well beyond. Pal has repeatedly demonstrated that Bitcoin doesn't just react to the Fed's target rate, it has a staggering 90% correlation with the global M2 money supply. Right now, we're witnessing a historic capital expenditure boom, heavily driven by AI and massive infrastructure overhauls. When you combine that capex boom with mounting government debt, central banks across the globe are effectively forced to expand their money supplies just to keep everything afloat. In this environment, Bitcoin acts as the ultimate, frictionless sponge for all that new capital. We are literally sitting in what Powell calls the calm before the liquidity bomb.
But, macroeconomic liquidity is really only half the equation. Institutional capital needs a solid rulebook. That brings us to Section 3, the regulatory renaissance.
In just 12 short months, we witnessed a historic rapid-fire shift that unlocked trillions in dormant capital. Gary Gensler's resignation paved the way for the Genius Act's strict 100% stablecoin reserve backing, and that all culminated in Project Crypto's unified SEC and CFTC taxonomy. This 12-month sprint is what finally allowed traditional financial giants to enter the space without absolute regulatory terror. Remember when compliance departments at major asset managers would just outright block crypto allocations? Well, the Genius Act integrated stablecoins into the traditional banking system, and Project Crypto finally ended the turf war over what's a security and what's a commodity. Unprecedented clarity breeds unprecedented capital, for sure.
With those clear rules in place, let's move to Section 4 and track the intelligent capital flows and the emergence of Alt Season 2.0.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how Wall Street stalwarts, we're talking BlackRock, Fidelity, and ARK Invest, are completely dominating the ETF inflow charts. They're capturing hundreds of millions in a single day. This isn't retail day traders speculating on their phones anymore. This is wealth managers, pension funds, and registered investment advisors systematically allocating client capital into Bitcoin as a standardized portfolio asset. The sheer success of products like IBIT and FBTC proves that when you wrap digital scarcity in a familiar, heavily regulated financial vehicle, the institutional demand is practically bottomless. As Bitcoin really solidifies its role as a mature treasury asset, sophisticated capital is simultaneously rotating into high-conviction altcoins and heavily regulated yield-bearing stablecoins. We're seeing a highly strategic structural reallocation happening. For an institutional manager today, yield-bearing stablecoins represent something akin to a crypto-native risk-free rate. You can park capital in a fully compliant, dollar-backed asset, earn a reliable 5 to 7% yield, and just wait patiently. Then, when volatility naturally occurs, you deploy that yielding dry powder to buy into high-conviction altcoin protocols that generate real on-chain revenue. It's a calculated risk curve strategy, no more spray and pray speculation. We've got the thesis, we've seen the evidence, so let's wrap this up with Section 5, the exact 2026 institutional playbook. Here are your key takeaways, the 4 strict rules you need to take back to your investment committee. First, build your models and size your positions assuming the Fed will not cut rates this year. If they do, just treat it as a bonus. Second, your real compass isn't the Fed funds rate anymore, it's the global M2 money supply and the DXY, the US dollar index. When the dollar weakens and M2 expands, crypto runs. Third, institutional crypto isn't just about holding spot assets, it's about volatility harvesting. Use strategies like covered calls on your core Bitcoin positions or cash and carry trades to generate baseline yield from the asset class's natural volatility. And finally, always keep dry powder ready for panic-driven market wipeouts. I want to leave you with this final thought. If Bitcoin truly has a 90% correlation to global liquidity, and central banks worldwide are currently preparing for a massive, decade-long structural expansion, is your portfolio adequately allocated for the supercycle? It's a question every single asset manager needs to answer right now, because the math is clear, the regulations are set, and the institutional capital is already flowing. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you on the next one.